Can you come in closer? The shot needs to be.
Yeah, look, there's quite a bit of space over on that edge for sure. Yeah, I would think a little tighter.
Well, no, the camera, not the camera, the shot, just the shot. The camera's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like the ped. Good ped.
Oh.
Good ped. Good ped. That's good. That's good ped right there.
As long as you see our shoes. Oh, wait, no, not our shoes.
Okay, so I changed my mind, Ernie. I'm going to have you take this graphic full as well.
And I think you can keep coming in. No, we don't need to see. So just really nice and tight. The closer in, the better, because people are going to be watching this on the internet.
Well, they're probably already watching it. I'm sure.
Are they?
I'm sure April's got the button right now. We're streaming right now, I bet. Say hi to April.
Well, thanks for telling me that we're live.
I don't know. I'm just guessing. But you never know. Those guys are ready to go.
I guess we should probably start if we're on the internet right now.
Okay, good, yeah. We didn't decide who was going to talk first.
I'm sorry, I didn't know we were starting either.
Yeah, we're on. We're ready. We're going.
Okay, this is live.
We're doing it.
Well, as you can tell, this is absolutely live. And John Dawson, Dr. Jim here. We're going to go through what's happening, what we've seen with Nicholas. And actually, there's some pretty good developments that we've seen here at the 7 p.m. update. And normally within updates, I mean, you'll see things, but there's probably the most interesting thing is if you look closely right now at the forecast. Now watch how the center of the storm goes up and then it backs down just a little ways. You see that? It's very small, but it's not that the storm is backing up. It's that the National Hurricane Center has readjusted where they think the center of the low is. Now, JD, why would they do something like that?
Well, because it's really hard to find. That's the easy answer is,
Yeah.
you know, and actually at 10 a.m. this morning when they said that it was definitely a tropical storm, I mean, again, I'm not arguing with anyone at the Hurricane Center. Those guys are the pros. But I was a little surprised that they were ready to identify it as a tropical storm at 10 a.m. I thought maybe a depression, maybe one of those potential tropical cyclones. But I think, yeah.
Right to it.
And I'm glad for that because it makes things so much easier for us when they do that. But they're also able to make those adjustments as necessary. So basically where they thought the center was, turns out it was probably just a little to the south, or either it sometimes will form in one place and then as it generates a little bit more energy, it actually, a stronger area reforms kind of close to it.
It's kind of like an eye wall recycle.
Exactly.
So every now and again in a big hurricane, you'll see the eye wall sort of disappears a little bit, then it comes back again, and so it's kind of a recycle. Now, what you can see here with this enhanced satellite imagery is if you look very carefully, you can see the purple, you see the red, but what you don't see is all circulation. What you do see is everything blowing in this direction, okay? Good and the bad about that. The good is that it's moving. The bad, of course, is that it's sending the instability out way ahead of where the storm is, meaning it's going to start raining long before the storm gets here, which is one of the reasons why the flooding is going to be a concern out of this.
Yeah, so totally. When we jump to our next discussion, it's about the forecast models. And just like we're talking about finding how important it is to know where that low is, your models, they got to have a good start if you want them to have a good end. And so they're going to have to kind of readjust a little bit as well. So you'd expect to see some changes a little bit in the modeling because we've sort of more or less changed where the center of it is at this point.
And if you look very carefully, and I talk a lot about this, is that if you just sort of take the general models that we trust and then kind of average them all, you're going to be pretty close to where the forecast should be most of the time, not always. Now, if you look very carefully down here where the circle is, Notice that the circle is a little more to the right of the center of all of those models. I know it's a little thing, but at this point, it's little things like that that will make a big difference as far as, 1 degree difference makes this much less of a problem for Houston than if it goes, 1 degree the other way. And so that's why we're looking for little things right now, which is also another reason why we have more questions than answers, but we're beginning to see the answers and they're becoming a little more focused.
Yeah, because just a little bit of a change in that forecast track could be 50 to 70 miles worth of landfall changing, or and that would affect where the worst of the rain is. And we're definitely going to see that in a minute. We're going to be looking at the GFS and the European model a little bit closer, and the differences that they have, and specifically how the rainfall goes along with that. But we'll dive into that a little bit more. Let's just sort of cover the facts, the basics on what we have right now. The tropical storm watches and warnings. Remember, these are basically wind related. That's pretty much what these are focused on. And this is going to go up, and you actually have the warning now. This is new, extending a little bit into the Fox 26 viewing area. So that's the first time the inland counties have been this far inland. I might have looked at that before, but that looks like Brazoria County at least.
And it looks like it. So it goes to Brazoria, Matagorda, Jackson, maybe Wharton.
And again, this was 7 o'clock updated. We wanted to jump in real quick and talk about the cone and talk about some of the other things that we've seen so far.
What you do see by Corpus Christi, how their entire area is tropical storm warning, how we have warning along the coast, watch everywhere else. So again, our biggest concern is still right along the coast as far as wind, storm surge, anything like that. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the area doesn't have concerns. Just right now, we expect those types of conditions in these areas.
All right, and then the flood watch the flash flood watch has also been adjusted a little bit. I think primarily they've added some eastern counties to that.
All the way to Louisiana, where I just came from, and they're not happy about this, by the way.
And we didn't necessarily create a storm surge graphic, because remember, the winds, it definitely going to impact some people. And then the storm surge are just the people right along the coast. We're looking at 2 to 4 foot storm surges in the Galveston area. Further down closer to Corpus Christi, it's 3 to 5 foot storm surge. But again, if you're not just on the coast, that's not going to impact you. But this is what is going to impact the most people, is the flooding threat. And that's why we're going to be talking over and over about rainfall amounts, and we're talking about the flooding threat, all of that, because that's what, Nicholas, seems to be the harshest conditions that are going to come and affect the most people, at least, is going to be the rainfall that happens.
And if you notice, it's the coastal counties and 1 county in. So it's just the 2 counties right along the coast is really where the concern for the major flooding in, which makes sense. I mean, as these rain bands come in, they're the heaviest along the coast. We still are going to see heavy rainfall up here in these other places, but not at the levels that we could see along the coast.
And I'm not going to put all my confidence into one computer model, but the European model is putting a lot more rain up towards the hill country as well, and we're going to see that in a minute. And so if the Weather Service, because the National Weather Service folks locally, they're the ones who put out the flash flood watches. The Hurricane Center does the tropical items. So this is done from the local folks, and if they start having more confidence in some of the modeling that shows the rain also further inland, then expect some of that watch, the flash flood watch, to change around just a little bit as well.
And there's still big question marks
in
that. That's why what we want to show you is that the question mark between those is kind of big, and it really makes a big difference right now, and they don't have the answers to that yet either, because it's just too early.
All right, so one thing that is we're all pretty confident in is what is going to help fuel this storm. While the winds might not be helpful as far as strengthening a storm, this is just exactly what a tropical cyclone wants to see.
Yeah, when you have anything over 80 degrees is enough to form a weak tropical cyclone. When you get to 83 to 84 degrees, now you're talking, pretty strong. Anything over 85 to 87, 88 is phenomenal amounts of moisture coming up. And so these storms, they eat the evaporation that's going on. And that's why when we get to it's going to get stronger as it moves over 87 degrees. And it's not just at the surface, it actually goes down a little ways too. Now what's good though, is that as it gets a little closer, it weakens. Now it's not a big difference, 1 degree, but we'll take the 1 degree because that will just kind of lessen it somewhat. And the other thing too is just how close it's going to be to land, which could help a little bit, but the fact that the temperatures are so hot, this still could become a hurricane. And that's why I'm leaving it out there. Right now the winds are, they have it up to 65 miles per hour. Well, that's less than 10 miles an hour away from being a hurricane. And even if it does, the wind is not going to change that much, but there is a difference between 65 and 73, 74 miles per hour.
And that's what I was going to close with. My final statements about this graphic is simply, if it becomes a hurricane, this is the reason why it's going to become a hurricane, because these waters are just so warm. It's just more fuel for that fire and that combustion engine that needs to take place for that, for sure. All right, so here's where we're going to really dive into some of these models and sort of talk a little bit more. The GFS and the European are still predominantly the two main modeling that's used for tropical cyclones, and we're going to start with the GFS. And basically what I've done here is the logo, the icon that represents a tropical storm. This will be what the Hurricane Center is putting out as their forecast, and then all the other information, the winds, the rainfall, the pressure, all that's going to be the GFS modeling.
So in this case, so you can see the circle right here. It's kind of hard to see. It's that tan line right through here. That's the area of low pressure that it's dealing with, and then it starts to come in a little bit closer. So at this point, it was saying broad circulation, which is exactly what we're seeing, because that's why they had a hard time seeing where the low is. Watch what happens as we move this forward. That circle gets smaller. See how it goes smaller? So what time is this? This is 9 p.m. Monday. So this is where, in fact, this is interesting. So
it's a little quicker.
Yeah, it is quicker. And you see how that's a very small low now? And so the forecast is to the left of where the GFS wants to put it, and the GFS is pretty close to a hurricane at that point when you're seeing that kind of a level.
And that's because again, the European model is, generally speaking, this GFS is going to be further to the east, European further to the west. Because it stays over those warmer waters longer, that's why this more organization would be here. So we want Nicholas to get the land as soon as possible, for sure.
And the fact that, remember when we were talking about the forecast, how they removed the area of the circulation is centered now, the fact that it moves south is not really good news, because then that gives it just a little more time to be over that water. Now, what does this mean for Houston with this particular model? Again, all that area purple, that's again where the heaviest rainfall would be at this point. And so again, it's south of Houston, but so Matagorda, Jackson, Palacios, places like that, that's where the heaviest rainfall.
But as we move forward in time, you're going to see that this heavy rain runs right over the Houston area. So we'll go ahead and advance it and see how it plows right on through. And then the GFS does pretty much keep the speed going, keep the movement going, and then it's all over by the time we get to Wednesday.
And that's also important too, because if it moves at this pace, then the circulation around the low would give us a northwest wind by early Wednesday, meaning, so we'd have heavy rainfall Monday, Tuesday, but by early Wednesday, I didn't see what time it was like just after midnight. Yeah. Midnight on Tuesday, it's over. And so that's actually significant for us, because if we shorten the chances for the rain, that would be a good thing. So, that's just the GFS though. This is one solution.
And remember, for Houston, let's say downtown Houston, you're going to like the next model a little bit better. The European model is favoring, it looks better overall for Houston.
So notice it starts off with the same kind of big circulation, which is exactly what we've been seeing. So that it's starting close.
And look, it's over here. Here's your low. It's even further over than where the Hurricane Center is pointing.
GFS is here. European is way over there. That is a significant difference. And honestly, when we see that, we don't like that, honestly, as meteorologists, because it's like, okay, they're really far apart. I mean, it is. This is a problem. This is a real problem, because which one of these is going to be more correct? Now, as we've seen recently, the Euro has been first to make the proper changes, and then the GFS follows. That's what we've seen in the last couple of storms. So now, again, you can't, it's a trend. It doesn't mean it's going to happen again, but we've been seeing this happen a couple of times now, that the European model does it first, and then the GFS adjusts to it, and then they kind of come back together again. They find they're somewhere. So if I had to look at this right now and I took between the two, I would lean a little more towards the European solution, but not as far as it's gone, and that they'll come back closer together.
And then what you're really going to see, though, is this bulk of rain avoids downtown Houston, and it's going to end up more towards the hill country a little bit. So here's, we're going to move through time and watch how much slower it is. The European, again, this is the Hurricane Center's forecast. This is the European model has slowed down. We're still in Tuesday. We haven't even got through Tuesday night yet. It's 6 p.m. Tuesday, and you still have all of this rain. It's not on top of Houston, but it's still out there, and it's definitely going to impact some other portions of the state. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, is that, that's why we talk about the fact that the minor changes, this can sort of slide around a little bit as far as where that heavy rain goes.
Now this is the important thing that we look at this also, because then someone might be asking the question, well, why is it not going to go east? We're thinking that it's going to go west. Why not east? Well, there's a couple of things. One of the reasons why we're in this kind of conundrum is that we had a frontal boundary that was here. That frontal boundary seems to has disappeared. Now, if the frontal boundary was still here, which the earlier modeling said that it would be, that the storm was going to run into it and just ride along the coast and then go into like New Orleans. That was 2 days ago. That was just 2 days ago, and we've gone this far because the upper level winds really haven't changed that much. The thing that's changed is that front is gone. It's disappeared. And they just erode. It kind of just disappears over time. And so the force of this is really to push it more west. The only thing that was going to stop it is whether or not that front was going to be there, and it doesn't look like it is.
All right, and then look, we're still look at all of this mess that's still lingering,
and we're still seeing some of that here, because at this point we still would have a south wind bringing in humidity, so we're still seeing rain here.
So, and I think that's why the Hurricane Center is kind of, they're blending some of this. That's what they do. They look at all their models and they come up with their own solutions and kind of blend some of that together. And that's definitely why you'll see some rain possibilities through Wednesday in the forecast for sure. Okay, so let's look much more detail of the actual forecast that the Hurricane Center is putting out right now. And I think the big thing to note is that with the 7 o'clock update is that it is going to start making that landfall at least Corpus Christi. Before, we've been saying Corpus Christi to Matagorda Bay, and right now it definitely looks a little bit further earlier, and that's good. Again, I want this thing to get on land as soon as possible.
Yeah. So it makes landfall just after going into Monday. So Monday to Tuesday. By Tuesday 1 a.m., it's already been on land for several hours. So that is actually significant. Now, what you want to watch also, so we have the update now, we may get another one here before 10 o'clock and in between everything, is to see if it goes even more, just a little more to the west. So we're not looking, it's not so much that one forecast or one model is going to change us or change our confidence, but each time when we see it, and we see that trend continue, then our confidence rises. Now, it's got to rise pretty quick, right? It's Sunday right now, and we're talking about Monday to Tuesday. So it's going to happen really fast, is what I'm saying. So stay tuned for that.
And this is the part where I always have to remind people, this is a forecast cone. It is not an impact cone. So even though you might be looking and say, oh, well, I'm in Galveston or I'm in League City or even downtown Houston, I'm not in the cone anymore. That doesn't matter. This is a forecast for where the center of the storm is expected to go. So really the center could be anywhere between these points. And the impacts, the winds, the storm surge, and in this case, most importantly, the flooding rains could totally be outside of the cone. And That's what we're going to look at here in our next graphic is the rains that are going to be expected with this system. The slowdown is a little bit of a worry too, as far as if it's far enough inland, not a problem. But if it's closer to the coast and it slows down like that's not a great thing.
It would be a problem. At this point, it would be a problem for people over here.
Sure.
Because they would be on the drawing in of it, and if it's far enough to the north, it would be a north wind again for us here in the Houston area, which is a drier wind, which would make it better. So here, watch the two differences between the modeling right now with the rainfall.
Okay.
That's where the question mark is.
So here's the expected rain. Remember, we talked about the two different models. This is the GFS model, and generally speaking, look how all these brighter yellows are showing up over here on the coast. And we can go ahead and pull this one full screen if you want to see a little bit more about what we're talking about. I'll put some numbers kind of on here that are sort of the expectations right now. In a very, very general term, we've been saying 5 to 10 inches of rain, isolated areas 15 and more, maybe as high as even 20 inches. But that, again, that's been the very, very general terms. And you can kind of see a little bit more now how those numbers lay out with the coloring. And this is the GFS, again, where it's going to keep the system over water a little bit longer, and it keeps the track a little bit further over to the east.
And keep in mind that the 8 to 10 and those bigger numbers, we really think that is going to be isolated. That's not widespread. That is not, all the eastern half of Houston. Keep that in mind, all right? And also that the Euro is very, very different.
Yeah, and then here's where you can see, look at the big yellow blob, if you will, the heaviest of the rainfall. Look how it has moved way over to the west and even stretches as far in to Austin to seeing some of those numbers that are going to be, let's just say, in the 6 to 8 range and even higher. Those have moved much further over to the west.
And it still gives, Houston, the western half of Houston would get, 4 to 7 inches of rain easily. Maybe more. And so this is one of those situations where we're talking about those rain bands, right? And as those rain bands will come in, they'll be heavy, and where we see training thunderstorms, that's where the problem area is going to be. So huge difference between the GFS and the Euro. And if you had to make a guess right now, I would go somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, totally. All right, so just a quick reminder, we're here live now, and we'll continue to be live, occasionally streaming and doing these updates like this. Always, though, you're going to get an update on YouTube, and I think tomorrow morning we'll start doing an AM version as well. But for sure, right after 4 p.m., you'll be getting an update from us that'll be posted to YouTube. And just remember, Dr. Jim's social media, my social media. That's going to be a way for myself. I use Twitter and Facebook primarily to push out that important information. You blast it everywhere, right?
Right. I blast it everywhere, and just keep in mind the things that we do on social media are right now. And so
we don't. You got to look at the timestamps on
right.
those.
We don't have time to go into the greater detail and of the whys behind most of those things, but it gives you the what. And typically what you need to watch for that, when we see something that our confidence is high, for example, where we're going to see the flooding, or when we have confidence more in the modeling of what's going to happen, that's when we blast those out really quick. And then where we have more time, like in here or on YouTube, then that's where I have more time to go into the explanation behind it as well. So
let's wrap up the rest of our programming notes. You're going to do a Facebook Live at 8?
8 o'clock, so
okay.
In a half an hour.
Yeah, so another update from Jim at 8, and then, of course, 9 p.m., Fox 26 News at 9. Of course, it'll be streaming, as well as turn on the TV, full hour's worth of coverage. We were talking to the producers. We'll be in just about between every commercial break, you'll be seeing something that's weather-related throughout the whole hour, staying updated. And, of course, we'll have, Mike and Lena Maria in the morning. And
please remember this, too, as we're going into a storm situation, that be careful where you get your information from, and because there are going to be things that are going to be put out that are bombastic, and sometimes I think that's kind of unresponsible from some people, and certainly if they're not a meteorologist and they're putting that information out, don't just see something on social media and share it. take a look to make sure you know it's something that's reliable. It's like from somebody like us or the National Weather Service, the National Hurricane Center, and don't overreact to one set of the models. Just we're more watching the trends, because anytime we overreact, we're going to make bad decisions, and we certainly don't want any of that going on. But we do need to be aware. All of us need to be aware of how the forecast is going to change, and it will change as we go into this in the next 2 days.
All right, so here's my final thoughts. If I was giving my mom a call, or my best friend, or someone from the church wants to, hey, what's going to happen? This is what I'm going to tell people right now. As of right now, I think this is a rain event for most of us here in the Houston area, and I think we're going to have bands, we're going to have rounds of heavy rain. There could be some gusty winds at times, but mainly it's rain. And Monday, we're going to be able to do most of what we normally do on Monday. But when we get into Tuesday, you're going to have to just pause everything. Don't leave a safe place. Don't leave your house and just take off and go run an errand or something. You need to check where the radar is. You need to see what's going on out there. It might be a better idea to just stay where you are for a little bit longer, and monitor again what that situation is. And then I'm hopeful that by Tuesday we're kind of more or less getting back to normal.
I agree with everything that JD you're saying. The only thing I would add to that is my little concern is whether or not this becomes a hurricane. And if it does, those winds, again, are going to be a problem right along the coast. Even Houston, it would be a gusty, windy day, but I don't think it's not going to be anything like Ida or anything like that. But so we want to be just aware that things are going to be changing a little bit on the fluid side.
All right, then. That'll wrap it up for this quick live update. Jim's back at 8 on Facebook, and otherwise we'll see you at 9 o'clock tonight.
Stay safe.